Today, we're going to talk about parts of an algebraic expression. The goal today is for students to learn the vocabulary about the parts of an algebraic expression. Let's do the vocabulary first here. When we talk about expression vocabulary, I'm going to focus on 4 vocabulary words: terms, variables, coefficients, and a constant. In our discussion here, I'm going to use this expression here to give examples for our terms, our vocabulary words. First, we're going to talk about terms. Terms are quantities separated by addition or subtraction. When I look at that, I have 1, 2, 3 terms. So we have 3 terms. What are those 3 terms? Well, the first term is 3x. The next term is minus 4y. Here's the thing about when you have a minus 4y. I'm subtracting 4y. So to separate the difference between subtraction and addition, I'm going to illustrate this as a negative 4y. That way we know we're subtracting 4y and not adding 4y. And then the last term is our plus 5, which is I'm going to represent as 5. Now variables are symbols that represent an unknown quantity. For most of our examples, we're going to be using a letter. So that symbol is going to be a letter that represents an unknown quantity. So when I look at my expression up there, I have 3x minus 4y plus 5. I have an x and I have a y. So my variables are the x and the y. Now coefficients are the numbers that are multiplied to a variable. So I'm going to look at those variables, the x and the y, and I'm going to see what I'm multiplying to them. The first one I have 3x. 3x is going to give me a coefficient of 3. My next one is negative 4y. Again, I'm subtracting 4y, so that x is a negative 4y. That's going to give me a coefficient of negative 4. So my answer is 3 and negative 4. Those are the coefficients in this expression. The last term is a constant. A constant is a number with no variables. I'm going to look up at my expression. I have a 3x, that's a variable, minus 4y, that's a variable, plus 5. The plus 5 has no variable attached to it. So the constant is the number that remains the same or cannot be changed, and that is the 5. That is my constant. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. In our next slide, we're going to go over some examples. First, I want you to tell me the terms, coefficients, variables, and constants of the expression. The terms, again, are separated by addition or subtraction. I have 25a, so that's my first term, minus 16b. Remember, we're going to do a negative 16b to illustrate that we're subtracting. Plus 18, so that's going to be 18, plus 16c, so that's going to be 16c, minus 56. That's going to be negative 56 to illustrate that we're subtracting. Now the coefficients, remember, are the numbers that are being multiplied to the variables. So my variables are a, b, and c. So I have a 25 multiplied to them. B has a negative 16 multiplied to it. Again, I'm subtracting it, so I'm going to illustrate it with a negative. And then my C has a positive 16 that's multiplied to it. My variables, as I said, are A, B, and C. The constants are the ones that are just the numbers without a variable, and that's 18. And since it's minus 56, I'm going to represent that as a negative 56. Okay, we move on to example 2. In example 2 and 3, we're talking about parts of our expression here. Using the expression that we have here, I want to know the expression consists of how many factors. Well, right here is one factor, here's the second factor. Factors are numbers that are multiplied together. The parentheses, with no operation in between, represent multiplication. So this is my one factor, this is my second factor. Okay, so that means I have 2 factors. Now, each factor contains how many terms? Terms are separated by plus or minus signs. I have 1, 2 terms on this one, I have 1, 2 terms on this one. So each factor contains 2 terms. Okay, in example 3, using the expression here, I want to know how many terms I have. Well, I have 1, 2, 3 terms. So that's a 3. And each term contains how many factors? Factors are numbers that being multiplied to each other. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Each term contains 3 factors. I am multiplying 3 separate parts to that. Okay, let's move on to example 4. In example 4, we're going to try to find the true-false statements based on this very long expression. First, A, the entire expression is a sum. Well, right here I have a minus sign, so that is going to be false. So no, because it is not all sum, I have a subtraction sign, so that is not correct. Okay. The next one says the coefficient of E is 12. So I look at the E here, and the coefficient is the number being multiplied to E, and it is in fact 12. So that's a yes, so I'm going to circle that as an answer. B is an answer. Okay, there's one answer. Now, looking at my expression again. The term negative 8 is a constant term. So I find negative 8, and there is no variable attached to that, so that is a yes. It is a constant term, so that is correct. So that's another correct answer. Alright, D. The term 7D is a difference. Well, 7D, when I look at 7D, I am not subtracting those. Difference means to subtract. So I am not doing that, so that is an incorrect answer. Okay. Now, next, I am going to look at the coefficient of C over 2 is 2. This one's kind of tricky. C over 2 is a division problem. When I look at this, when I divide, C divided by 2, that represents the same thing as dividing by 2, which, if I multiply by the reciprocal, means I'm multiplying by 1/2. A coefficient is the number I'm multiplying by. 2 is not 1/2. So that is not correct. I'm actually multiplying by 1/2. That one's tricky because you have to use your reciprocal rules to figure that one out. Now for F, the term C over 2 is a quotient. Yes, that is true. Why? Because this is division right here. So you are dividing there, so that makes this a correct answer. So the ones that are correct are B, C, and F. Okay, have a great night, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.